check it out.
Subaru WRX fan for weekly update number 45 on this Friday. So I'm back in the BRZ after a week away in Florida, and man, I gotta tell you, every time I go away for a little while and come back to this car, I just appreciate it so much more. And I love this thing. And speaking about how much I love it, I've actually just passed 25,000 miles on the car, and it's just been nothing but smiles, as you've seen full well with all these weekly updates. I mean, you know, the little things here and there, you know, the tail light issues, the window issue, things like that, small little things, but I mean, mechanically, this car is solid. It runs great still. I love it. It gets better and better with age to me. I still can't stop praising these cars enough. Another thing that I've noticed now that I've been doing all these car reviews here over the past year or so is that every car is so awesome and unique in its own way, and they all can be appreciated in different ways. But at the end of the day, I'm always happy to come back to the BRZ, because this is just one of those cars that whenever you compare it to other cars, it makes you appreciate it even more. You know, the cars like the Mini Cooper S that I just reviewed, and I appreciate all the support on that review, by the way, and I love getting all your feedback. And one or two people asked me, I was praising how much, it was such a good handling car, and people were saying, well, does it handle better than the BRZ? What do you think? And it doesn't. When I came back into the BRZ, this thing, it's just a combination of its low weight, your low seating position, the low center of gravity of having a flat motor mounted low in the chassis. I mean, all those things just make this car handle really spectacularly. And I mean, the minis and things like that, they do handle really well because they're also, short wheelbase, lightweight, small cars, and it handles spectacularly. It's a wonderful handling car. But getting back into this car, I love it. I mean, and everyone has different tastes. So, this car suits me really well. Doesn't mean it'll suit you really well. That's why everyone has different cars. It'd be boring if we all drove the same thing. So it's good that, different people go for different things. So yeah, nothing else really new with the BRZ. That hush mat I installed a few weeks ago, it's still, I'm growing to appreciate it more and more. I think it definitely did take some of the harshness out of this exhaust system, and I'm pretty happy with the job that it's doing. So yeah, I'll send it back to me at the news desk for this week's news. Right, so for this week's news, the first thing is big news. Of course, the 2015 Subaru WRX STI photos leaked out ahead of the Detroit Motor Show release. And, a lot of people are saying it looks a lot like the Evo 10, and I agree. I think that rear spoiler is very, very similar to the Evo 10 rear spoiler, and just the way the whole front end and everything looks, it does look a lot like the Evo. But I think that's a good thing. Like I said in my Evo 10 review, I think they look really good. And so I don't mind that Subaru's borrowing a little bit of that styling. I think this car looks really great. The only thing about this car that's underwhelming to me is, they're saying it's probably going to have the same 300 or so horsepower from the same 2.5 liter turbocharged motor. And, it's had the same power for the past 11 years. I think it's time for a power upgrade. They didn't even have to go nuts. Even just an extra 30 horsepower would probably be appreciated. Something. Obviously these cars are very easy to tune. Just, plug in a cob access port and you have 50 extra horsepower or whatever. But, I still feel like they should offer more from the factory. And, with these cars getting larger and slightly heavier, I feel like the power should be going up accordingly. And so yeah, it'll be interesting to see though what handling tricks, and hopefully they'll get the new torque vectoring like they have on the new 2015 WRX. Hopefully that'll be included in this car, and maybe they'll have a few other surprises up their sleeve that they'll be telling us about at Detroit. But as far as the images go, it looks pretty good, but like I said, I'm just kind of meh on it right now. One car, though, that did really floor me is the Lexus RC F Coupe. The official pictures were leaked out, and, some people might still say it looks a little ugly, but I think it's by far the most beautiful Lexus with this new grille. And I think it looks really sweet. Some people have said that it actually looks like a BRZ on steroids, and from certain angles I definitely agree. And this car is amazing. They haven't announced what kind of powertrain is going to be in it just yet, so we'll have to wait for the Detroit Auto Show to hear all the details on it. But from the exterior and interior, it looks really sweet. I love the way this thing looks. It's pretty awesome. So even if it has just the same same standard Lexus ISF V8, which has 460 odd horsepower, that still is going to be a really fun car. And yeah, so it'll be interesting to see more details about that as well. Another really good-looking car that leaked out was the 2015 Chrysler 200. Now, I talked about this car a few weeks ago, and some spy shots had leaked out, and back then it looked a little odd, but looking at it now with these more clearer pictures, it's really beautiful. You can tell they took some cues from the Lincoln MKZ, but that's a good thing. I mean, the Lincoln, I think, still looks better, but this is a pretty nice and elegant-looking car, and I think, if they price it aggressively like they're planning on, I mean, this is going to be a really nice car. I mean, they're saying $21,700 for this thing, and I think that's going to sell really well. Again, Chrysler is on this hot streak. I would not be surprised if those things start flying off showroom floors the second they hit the streets. And some more Detroit teasers now. The first teaser is the Volkswagen Beetle Dune Concept that they're going to be debuting at Detroit. It's basically like any other Volkswagen Beetle Dunes, like the old dune buggy ones that they had, where it was lifted and they have some grill guards and things like that, making it look aggressive. And I think it's pretty cool. I actually really like the new Beetles. I know some people think they're girly cars. I think they look a lot more manly now with this newer version they've had for the past couple of years. And that thing, jacked up like a dune buggy, I think is going to be pretty sweet. Can't wait to see the actual photographs of that car. And Volvo's Concept XC Coupe also leaked out. You'll remember a few months ago I was drooling over the Volvo Coupe Concept that they came out with. It was absolutely gorgeous, this two-door, sleek-looking design. And this is supposed to preview some of their, XC crossovers, and so it looks a lot like that coupe, except it's lifted again, and has the higher ground clearance, has the underguards there, and just kind of giving a more aggressive look like the Beetle Dune buggy concept. And so that looks just as beautiful as the coupe, I think. Obviously I'd rather have a coupe than a jacked up crossover, but it's still a good looking car. Volvo is definitely headed in a good direction with these new designs. And another thing was the Consumer Electronics Show was this week, and there was a couple interesting car stories that came out of that. The first was that Audi debuted the next Audi TT's interior and the new virtual cockpit that they're planning on putting in this car and a lot of other cars in the future. And this is really an interesting idea because, they wanted to reduce the clutter that a lot of cars have with all the center consoles, with, the huge screens and the millions of buttons and all that kind of stuff going on, and they wanted to simplify it. So the center console is very simple, but then everything is in the gauge cluster. It's a totally digital gauge cluster, and so it has the navigation system map in between the two gauges. And I mean, Ferrari and other people have been experimenting with these, overlaps. The LFA has an all digital dashboard and things like that. But this is going to be the first for, some of the lower end cars to have this totally digital dashboard. And it's interesting because the tachometer and speedometer will actually shrink down whenever you're doing other things. So if you're pulling up the navigation screen maps, then it'll have that come to the forefront of the display. So the only screen in the car is the gauge cluster, which is a pretty interesting design. Some people are saying it's going to be really distracting. I don't know how it would be when you're driving around. I feel like it's just as distracting right in front of you as it would be whenever you're playing around with it off to the right-hand side of you. So it'll be interesting to see how this works, whenever people are actually driving around with these, but it's a very cool idea nonetheless. Another very cool technology that Audi debuted at the Consumer Electronics Show was their new laser light headlights, and these are debuted on the new Audi Sport Quattro concept today. We've already seen, and so they're just talking more about these headlights. And the really cool thing about these headlights is, yes, they're lasers, which alone is a really cool thing. This is the future of having lasers for headlights. But the interesting thing about these lasers is they're safer than LEDs or xenons or anything like that, because they can be brighter, but because it's such a concentrated beam of light, it actually doesn't blind oncoming drivers. So you can be driving with way brighter headlights, you're not blinding anyone in front of you, and it really works out perfectly. Everyone wins. And so they confirmed they're going to put these in production cars in the near future, which is awesome. So, I mean, the future is here. Audi is the people, they're leading the way. So, you want a futuristic car, buy an Audi. They're just on fire with all this sweet technology they've been coming out with recently. But BMW has also had a cool little Consumer Electronics Show trick up their sleeve, and they debuted this BMW M235i that drifts itself. And so a lot of people are freaking out about this, and a lot of people think it's really cool. I think it is cool, but it's kind of weird at the same time. So this car, it totally drifts itself. It has, it uses GPS and sonar and all the normal things that actual, normal autonomous car would use. and except it just knows how to drift as well. So it's pretty sweet technology, but again, you know, it's kind of taking away some of the challenge and thrill to the driver. So it's interesting that BMW is taking this technology to the next level, because autonomous cars alone kind of freak people out. People have been complaining, you know, ever since they, you know, started getting rid of manual transmissions and going to the semi-automatics and the paddle shifters, all that kind of stuff. People were saying it's taking away some of the driver challenge, and it's making these cars easier to drive faster, and you don't have to have as much skill. And even you know, Ferrari with the new 458 Speciale, it has a mode that lets you kind of drift. It kind of lets you control the drift, and the computers help you drift. And people were saying, well, that's kind of cool, but also it takes away some of the challenge, because now you can drift a Ferrari way easier than you could before. And now the BMW just takes it to the next level, and the thing drifts itself. So, you know, not only does it shift on its own and it can drive itself, but now it can also drift itself. So you can literally sit there and text while you're doing motorsport stuff, and it's just kind of weird. I don't know. But I think that's taking it a little bit too far. It's cool technology. I hope that BMW is just doing this to show that, yeah, we can do this. I don't know if they should, though. That's kind of the conundrum that we're at right now, is, you know, there's plenty of ways that you can make cars drive themselves and do all kinds of cool things, but do you want them to do that? I don't want a car that drifts itself. I mean, yeah, it'd be fun at a drift day to take your hands off the wheel and just sit there and let the car drift itself. It'd be kind of a cool toy, but it takes away some of the fun, I think. So be interesting to see how people react to that, and see if BMW actually decides to go forward with that. Alright, now back to some good old car news. There's a rumor that Ford is considering a Fiesta RS, because the Fiesta ST has been doing so well. And, you know, there's also obviously the Focus ST and the Focus RS they already have, you know, and the Focus RS has been a very popular car over in Europe for a long time. We here in America, unfortunately, do not get the Focus RS, but, you know, because the Fiesta is doing so well, and, you know, people love the Fiesta ST, Ford's considering a Fiesta RS. Who knows if it would actually come to America, or if it would only be a European car like the Focus RS, but, you know, they're saying here they would have 230 horsepower, have a totally stripped out interior, and be really hardcore. Sounds amazing to me. I really hope they do make a Fiesta RS, and if they do, please bring it here. I think people would definitely buy something like that for, you know, around 30,000 bucks. That'd be really sweet. Next is that there's a report that Bentley is, you know, they're going to be having an SUV coming out here soon, which a lot of people are already kind of weirded out by. But on top of that, they're saying that's going to be a plug-in hybrid, and it's going to be the first of many plug-in hybrids that they plan to make. And Bentley is just, they're taking a rough road here. I feel like not a whole lot of people want to see Bentley hybrids or anything like that. I could be wrong, but I feel like this is kind of a niche market already, and the fact that Bentley's trying to get into it with one car that is already going to be really challenging for them to sell already, a Bentley SUV, you know, whenever people that, you know, would want an SUV of this caliber would just go for a top-of-the-line Range Rover or something like that. This is going to be a hard sell to begin with, and then to say that it's going to be a plug-in hybrid, I don't think that's going to help this car at all, and I don't know why Bentley wants to get into plug-in hybrids. I think that they have an awesome set of engines already, and there's no need for them to experiment with that, but that's what they're doing, and like any car maker's attempts, I wish you all the best, Bentley. I hope it works out, but I think you should stick with the V8s and W12s. And while we're talking about alternative powertrains and things like that, the U.S. Army is actually testing a Subaru-powered hybrid truck. And this beast is actually almost 14,000 pounds, and so the Subaru turbo diesel that's under the hood only makes 175 horsepower and 260 foot-pounds of torque, which is not nearly enough, so it's helped out by a 369 horsepower electric motor that puts out 844 foot-pounds of torque, and that's only continuous torque. The peak torque is 1,221 foot-pounds of torque. So this thing has a ton of torque, and they're saying that it can still go really far even with this hybrid powertrain. It's very durable, and I just think it's pretty sweet, one, that they're putting a Subaru motor in this tank essentially, and next that it's, you know, going to have that much torque. That's pretty wild. So hope the U.S. Army goes ahead with that. I'm sure Subaru would love to build a bunch more engines for the Army. And the last two stories are about Chevy. The first is that it's been leaked out that the 2015 Corvette Z6 is going to produce 620 horsepower and 650 foot-pounds of torque. And this was discovered because there's metadata built within the Corvette Z6 mini site, and I guess some people were able to decode it and figured out it has 620 horsepower and 650 foot-pounds of torque, which, if you're keeping track, is a huge monumental leap over the previous generation Z6, which had a naturally aspirated 7-liter V8, and this is going to have a supercharged motor, and I mean, this is going to be a huge leap. We're doing over 100 horsepower more than the previous version, and that's going to be really impressive. I can't wait to see if that's actually confirmed and see this whole car. They've just teased the rear fender, and that's all we've seen so far of the car, so I can't wait to see the whole thing here at the Detroit Auto Show. And the last thing is some news that came out about a week ago that I missed, and that is that the 2014 Chevy Camaro Z28 price was announced, and it's going to start at $75,000. And you might say, well, that's okay because it's really fast around the Nürburgring, right? And yes, it is. It does. They're saying 7 minutes and 37 seconds, I believe, around the Nürburgring, something like that, which they're saying is faster than a Porsche 911 Carrera S, which I might add has a lot less horsepower than this car, and they say it's faster than the Lamborghini Murcielago LP640, which was never a good handling car. That was always a high-speed cruiser. The Murcielago was not designed to be a tight handling car. That was always the Gallardo's bag. But, so this is just, I don't know, I think it's way overpriced, $75,000. I mean, you have to remember that Ford offers a 662 horsepower Shelby GT500 for $20,000 less. And that car, the people that took it around the Nürburgring, unofficial time say it's around 7 minutes and 40 seconds. So at best, you're talking about a car that's 3 or 4 seconds faster on the Nürburgring for $20,000 more. And, you know, because this car, this Camaro Z28, it has a 7-liter V8, which is a sweet motor, but it only has 505 horsepower and 481 foot-pounds of torque. And in this crazy muscle car era that we're in right now, that is a pretty small number. So that's just, I feel like they way overpriced it. I mean, yes, this car is track ready and it's, you know, really an impressive car. I mean, it is. I mean, it goes around the Nürburgring very quickly. But $75,000, I still feel like that's going to be a tough sell. But, I mean, I'm sure they're going to keep production down, keep them very limited. I'm sure it'll sell just fine, but that is still just a crazy price for that car. So yeah, that's it for all the news this week, guys. So I'll send it back to me in the car. So yeah, I'll leave you guys with a nice little acceleration here, like I always do. A little bit of wheel spin there. Do a highway merge today. It's just, I love everything about this car. So anyway, that's enough gushing for 1 week. So I'll see you guys next week. Take care.